So today we have the pleasure of speaking with Scott Wozniak. Scott, you have a really interesting background. The biggest thing I would say is you work for Chick-fil-A. You had a big job there in customer support, something along those lines. You end up leaving the company, but then they end up being your first client as far as a consultant. And then so many afterwards. You work for big brands like Disney, we've seen Starbucks, Crumble. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of your philosophy of what you're doing out there in your consultancy?
Yeah. So did work at Chick-fil-A, which kicked all this stuff off. And I had a really unique job. And so this kind of frames a lot of this discussion we can have. Instead of running a department, my job was literally 50% of the time travel the world, go inside other companies and learn how they operate. They'd be like, hey, we got a guy. Can our guy join your team? And I'd go shadow teams and help them launch stuff and get certifications. And I literally just learned from the best in the world for a living. And then the other half of the job was come back and actually turn that into some great guest experience moments. And so actually, do something practical with it, build a new program, change a process. So it was super fun. I learned a ton. And man, I'll just say this. Yes, we spent a lot of time in classic hospitality. And so we got some cool stories for this. But you and I were just talking about this before recording, how critical this is kind of everybody. We learned from lots of folks. And so maybe my first unprompted idea here is, man, all of us have a customer. And so most of the time we talk about the end user, the guest that comes to our property, and how we're going to make them have a magical moment. It's wonderful, right? But I would challenge everyone who's listening. We all have somebody who we serve. So even if you're in finance and you're like, I don't do the guest stuff. Well, you take care of somebody, and that somebody is the one who takes care of our guest. Or maybe you're the leaders, maybe your customer is your team, and your team is the one that does the frontline stuff. And so the tactics shift, but the fundamental questions, the ideas, they're still the same. Do we set these people up to feel like they're having a great experience? They're valued. What they do matters. When you do that, you win. I mean, at the end of the day, this is how business works. And so, yeah, we did notice a pattern going through all these different companies and all these different tactics. There are three big questions all the customers are asking, whatever the industry, whatever the role. And we've got to all figure out our way of answering those questions. And then you get a great guest experience. I mean, it's how it works.
Yeah. And could you tell me a little bit more about, I don't even know if it's like a trademark thing that you have here, but you called it like the customer experience engine?
Yes. Okay. We took those three questions and I scribbled out a little diagram to try to make it memorable and it makes how do they connect to each other and all this fun stuff. So here's the engine. There's 6 parts to the engine. There's 3 gears at the core and then 3 supporting things to it, right? Okay. So the first piece is customer insight, and it's the fuel that feeds the engine. Everything we do assumes, do you actually know your customers? And we find most people have customer data, not customer insight, right? We know what they buy, when they show up, we know seasonal patterns, but do we know why? Why'd they pick us versus our competitors? Which of our stuff do they care about versus don't? Let me put it a bigger way. What life do they trying to build? What do they care about? Because if I could be blunt, they don't actually care about your thing. They care how your thing makes their life better. So if you don't know the life they're trying to build, you don't know how to optimize your thing. And it could be one tiny touch that's like, oh, this is my favorite. Or you could be doing stuff that they don't care about. And you could actually save time and effort if you actually know your customers. So customer insight, there's a whole process. How do we find information about them and analyze that, turn that into optimizations for them? Insight, it's a fuel that feeds all this. Okay, so that's for us. What we do for them, the heart of the engine is 3 gears. And the first gear is operational excellence. The first question they're asking is not how cool are you? How fancy are you? The first question they're asking is, can I trust you? Can I trust you? And man, nothing else matters until you get that answered. You could have the coolest, fanciest stuff in the world. In fact, okay, Joe, you're listening. Here's what you came here for today. It's going to be great. I'm going to give you the Scott Wozniak plan on how to ruin your brand forever. That's what you wanted me to talk about. But here's if you hired me to do that, here's what I would do. I would actually help you get world-class marketing, advertising, and attention-getting stuff and really bad operations. Because now what'll happen in the short term, you'll see sales, but I don't know, give me 12, 18 months. Everybody will come check out, find out you're really bad at your job. They'll tell all your friends. You'll have no trust. Your brand will be in the ground and you'll be dead. You don't actually want to get good at the fancy stuff until you have solid operations on the fundamentals. right? If we're talking hotels, a good check-in experience, clean rooms, right? I mean, like basics is not the fancy stuff in the restaurant world. Like, is the food hot or cold? If, hot sandwiches and cold salads. I mean, it's pretty straight up stuff. Like, if you don't do that right, I don't care how fancy your decor is or cool your bonus party is. I'm going to talk about that stuff in a minute. But this is the mistake I see a lot of people do is they skip operations because it's the boring stuff. And they like, we're going to wow our customers with fancies. Man, if you get really good at the basics, this alone will build reputation, trust, credibility, and a level one fan base. Operational excellence is actually the biggest gear in our engine. It's a big deal. Okay. So operational excellence, big fat gear right at the heart of the engine. Then I have two small gears, two little bitty guys. And what we say is, okay, once or twice a year, do one or two things in these categories. They're little bonuses that have big impact. And the first of them is personalized service. Yes. Personalized service. Because the question they start asking is, do you care about me? Do you care about me as a person, right? Do I matter here? Or is this just another transaction for you, right? Do you actually notice? And it's like a fundamental human thing, Joe. Everybody deep down wants to be seen, noticed, and liked. I mean, I kind of half joke that we're all still in middle school walking into the lunchroom with our food. Like, does somebody want to sit with me? Does anybody see me? Right. I think we're getting pretty good at like pretending, we could play it cool, but deep down, that's kind of how we all show up at the work and show up at their locations when we do this stuff. Like, do these people notice me? Does anybody like me here? And again, we put a cool face on it, but every one of your guests is asking that question. So then how do we do that? There's all these little tactical things you do to just little bonuses, from writing personal notes to using their name, lingo to the physical, like little tiny gifts you give people. And so there's lots of ways to make this feel special, right? Feel like, oh, you actually notice. So operational excellence, can I trust you? Personalized service, do you care about me? And then the final, if you don't do this, if you do all the others but this last one, they actually love you, but they aren't talking about you. And what I want to help people do is create not just regular customers, but raving fans. Dude, raving fans are the most valuable, profitable thing you could possibly get. I'd rather have a small group of raving fans and a large group of regular customers. Because not only do raving fans buy more often, raving fans tell others to buy from you. Like, your customers bring you customers who bring you customers. There are companies who year after year, decade after decade, they just grow. Like the industry goes up and down, and these companies just tick up. Chick-fil-A is one of these examples. They are on track. We're recording this at the end of the year. They are on track to hit their 39th year in a row of growth. Wow. With an average 15% growth, man. It is crazy how much they've grown. And like, we've half joked in years in like past strategic plans when I was on staff, we'd be like, I know there's a recession, but we just decided to sit this one out. Like, it's not really a strategic plan. Like, yeah, obviously everyone would love to do that. What we had raving fans. And when you have a raving fan, like, they're going to work with you, whether or not, like, they'll cut other things before they cut you. You're the last thing they'll cut. You're the one go-to. And so it gets really interesting when you have raving fans. So how do we go from loving fans to raving fans, right? How do you tip that scale? This last year, and what we learned is this: people don't tell facts. They don't even tell feelings. People tell stories. Yep. So we got to give them a story they want to share. You can't just do a good job and then hope they talk. They're not going to do it. You got to create a story. The key to this, though, and this is the mistake I made in the early days. I tried to make stories to talk about how awesome I was, right? Maybe I'm a little arrogant. I don't think so. I think what it was is I'm thinking strategically, like, okay, I want them to talk about me, so I have to show off my skills. And then they'll have everybody say, okay, check that guy out. He's really, really good, right? It never works, man. No matter how cool you are, they don't want to tell your story. They want to tell their story. Right. So we'll create a moment that makes our customer feel awesome because they're with us. And so we're in the story. We're just not the hero of the story. The customer is the hero of the story. Because the question they're asking, the third of the three questions, is, how do I feel about myself when I'm with you? Not how do I feel about you? How do I feel about myself when I'm with you? And when you make them feel like they're stinking awesome because they come to your property, work with your team, sign a deal with your stuff, when they feel awesome because they partner with you, holy cow, man. This is where people buzz and tell those stories. So we find moments to celebrate our customers while they're with us. We either host an event at our space. You create these either special events, host big birthday parties or cool things, or you have surprise things for them. Like when they check in, you have this special package they didn't expect and you make them feel awesome. And again, it's not look how cool we are. It's, man, for a guest as cool as you, here's all the stuff. And they're like, oh, check out all the cool stuff these folks gave me because I'm awesome, right? A couple of quick examples, because this one's probably the least obvious, as most people haven't even tried some of this. This is Ritz-Carlton, who knows your profile, knows you so well, you roll up in there and they have your favorite drink from the bar ready to go. They don't just know your name. This is the personal touch. Hey, Joe, man, so glad to have you back. You know, how's your family? They call your wife by name or whatever, right? Here's the deal. And then they're like, hey, we're just so excited to have you back. You're one of our favorites. In fact, we remembered last time you loved an old fashioned, and they slide an old fashioned on the counter to you and say, welcome to the Ritz, man. And you're just like, these guys are awesome. And they're like, because it's you, because you're Joe Stinking Pie. Like, for you, we make your drinks in advance. And you're like, yeah, I'm kind of a big deal, right? And now what you do is you post about how cool Ritz is, but like the subtone of the post, like, when you get to be a customer at my level, they greet you at the door. And nobody says those words, but that's what's going on, is like, I feel like I'm kind of awesome when I stay at the Ritz. That's why people come back. And they're like, this is my jam. So the restaurant you don't have to tell them it's your birthday. They remember it's your birthday and they show up with a special treat just for you, remembering your favorite dessert from last time. That kind of moment is the stuff that people buzz about, and they feel like they're awesome because they show up with you. Almost done. But like, we got insight that tells us how. The insight is what tells you which memorable moment they want, like which kind of dessert or whatever. Like, you have to know Joe in order to know Joe's favorite. How are you going to do that if you don't have insight? That's why that matters. And then we also realize there's another supporting function to this, and that is a healthy leadership team. Your whole team's got to buy in. The key word for healthy is it's a collaboration. And I'm doing my fingers like this. You can see the picture. It's the belt behind the gears. It's not a separate gear. It's not different tactics. It's the thing that synchronizes everybody and keeps us all on the same page. Because here's what I learned. If you have multiple locations or multiple steps in the process, everybody's got to do this. Because, I'm just going to tell a story. It's a tragic version of this, that what happens when you don't do this. Chipotle in the US, restaurant chain, they have been struggling for several years now, because several years ago they had a food safety crisis. Do you remember this, Joe?
Something like that, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So here's the tragedy. Chipotle is still struggling nationwide, has not recovered from that brand hit. It was not a nationwide problem, Joe. Some folks, I think it was in Colorado,
Interesting,
had the problem. That's it. It hit the news because few of their locations weren't trustworthy. The whole brand has been struggling for almost a decade now. You can't have the check-in part be great and the room cleaners screw up, right? You can't have the first day go well and the night shift blow it. You can't have, if you have multiple locations, you can't have 3 or 4 locations be awesome and the fourth one decide, yeah, we're not going to do the nice stuff. You either all do it or you don't. I wish I had happier news in this front, but we just learned the hard way. If the whole team doesn't buy this and all the leaders say my department is in, one bad experience can wreck the whole thing. Now, if you have like a single moment that's bad and then you go generously apologize, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the leader who says, I don't buy this crap. I'm not doing it. You guys are on your own. I'm not going to add my touch to this. And they're just out. You can't have everybody go premium and one guy screw up or one guy go basic. You're either all premium or you're not. And so whole team, belt behind it all, you've got to stay synchronized. You got to bring everybody with you. And then the last one was the piece we added to the engine only a few years ago. And that is AI and tech. Now, after a lot of debate, Joe, we're like, where does AI fit in this? Is it a new strategy? And here's what we learned. AI and tech is not a new strategy. It's just a nitrous oxide booster on your old strategy. Like it's the same core questions. It's the same tactical outputs. It's the same fundamental stuff, but AI will allow you to do it faster, better, smarter. Now, if somebody's not familiar with nitrous oxide and what it is on an engine, I learned all about this watching these documentaries called The Fast and the Furious. I don't know if you saw it. Yeah, these highly realistic descriptions of how vehicles work, right? Yeah, it's the blue flame. You hit the magic blue button and your engine fires up with blue flame juice and you go super fast. There is a real thing called nitrous in the world. It may not be exactly how Fast and Furious does it. That's the idea. First, figure out what kind of an experience you want to deliver. Then say, what tech tools might help me get there faster, better, smarter? But what we're learning in the guest world is that tech cannot be used to replace a human connection. It needs to be to enhance a human connection. Customers still want a human to interact with them. And there's a story, a famous company, Klarna, just did this a couple of months ago. They had gone hardcore in 24 to all AI chatbots and all this tech, and they actually saved a bunch of money. I mean, like $40 million. It was pretty cool. And then this year they announced we went too far. And while it was efficient, our customers missed the human connection and started going to other people as a result. And so there's a certain fundamental human layer that tech should boost. Now there's some stuff it's like no humans were involved. That was just a automated, cranky process. Nobody enjoyed it. Yeah, automate that junk. But like the people who are all kiosks for the check-in, there's a certain amount of human interaction that people crave. Like humans are herd creatures. And until we figure out how to rewire the DNA there, right, we're going to be social creatures anyway. And we're going to want that. So tech's there, but tech's there to make it smarter, faster, better, not replace that human touch. So AI boosts the engine. It's not a totally new gear. So that's it. Customer insight, operational excellence, personalized service, a memorable moment to make him talk about you. The healthy team is a belt behind it because everybody buys in, and tech to boost you and make it a little bit faster. That engine is what we found everybody who has a raving fan does their own version of this. I mean, you got to make your own tactical details, right? There's a lot there, but like, bro, I've been from manufacturing to Ritz-Carlton. Literally Ritz has been one of the people we work with to, restaurants, Michelin star joints down to theme parks. I mean, it's like, this is just the engine. The details are different, but the same fundamental questions and strategies. This is how you get raving fans out of your customers.
Great. There's just one thing I do want to drill down about. Like we talked about, like the customer insights, and there was an example. I feel like this anecdote really does kind of paint this picture. With Chick-fil-A, you had the example of there's two mothers, right? Both the same, 35 years old. The one who's going off and bringing the kids for that hour and a half trip. They're going to play in the playground. They're going to order. There's, the staff is then trained to pay attention to that and to like bring the food to the table for her because she's got to push her stroller. Well, then there's the other mom who's also the working mom and her kids are at daycare or they're at school. She doesn't really want to necessarily be bothered by someone picking up her tray or even talking to her because all day long she's talking to folks. How do we as businesses and even like small restaurants, hotels, whatever it is, we have the insights. We can see, hey, 36-year-old woman, Caucasian, maybe a mother. How do we find more specifics, though, about like not all moms are created equal, correct? Like how do we drill down a little bit further on that then?
It's kind of a mix of art and science, right? I mean, start with the data, randomly guess, right? You look at your actual customer profiles and you say, a customer who's showing up, you can ask them. There are questions you can ask. You can do surveys to get information from them. You can sit down and ask questions. I mean, sometimes surveys, smaller businesses, we can get hyped and first like, I don't have the money for the big stuff. Man, some of the highest fidelity, most good insight is just a human conversation. Talk to your best customers. You probably have raving fans today. Like you could draw a circle around 15% of your folks and be like, these people, they come all the time. Why? Why don't you just go ask them? Instead of guessing, go find out. Now, the reason these big companies do all this fancy stuff is because they can't afford to go ask all their customers. They're too big. It's unscalable. You can do the unscalable thing and get the high fidelity personal stuff. So data doesn't have to mean technical data. It can be a conversation and you come back and write down what they said, right? So there's lots of ways to do that, from give them free food to host a special event. But there's consultants and industry data and a lot of our hospitality industry is a well-studied space. And so you can ask for, hey, what are the demographics in my area and purchase a bunch of that. So there's a ton of ways to get data. But then that's the science. Then you and your team sit down and this is the art. And you say, who do we want to be? What do we want to pursue? We see a cluster here. is this what we really care about? What brand do we want to have? Because there might be a little bit of skew. Like, do we want to go this way? You might have 2 or 3 clusters of people, but you might notice like, clusters of the dots in the data, and you draw a circle around them and say, okay, let's put a name on this. Let's talk about this. Or so like in that example, we talked about soccer mom, Sarah, and business owner, Beth, right? They're not all actually named Sarah or Beth, right? We get that. But it's a stereotype that helps us recognize, hey, this is the pattern that we're seeing. And you guys get to decide, what do we think? Does that matter? What do we want to focus on? And so there's a certain amount of creative decision making. What do I want? What do I want to be? What would we like to aim for? So it's not either or. You don't just cross your fingers and try to make up an answer, but you don't just say, well, I mean, Scott's coming, so I guess bald is our profile. Like, maybe. But you could say, yeah, the bald part doesn't matter, man. Like, that's not relevant data. It's random. Or you can say, I don't like bald guys. We're the anti-bald restaurant. Sorry. Hair people only, right? And so you get to choose which data points to say, I care about, I don't care about. Art, science, start with your data, get a bunch of stuff, look for the patterns, and then go back to your vision, your heart, your mission. Like, why? Why are you doing this? What do you care about? What image do you want to have? What reputation do you care about? Is there a population you really want to reach? What do you want to do there? And so, like, I'll give you an example. I just was at a restaurant in South Florida, and a Cuban restaurant. Now, there's 2 kinds of Cuban restaurants in Southeast Florida, right? There's the Cuban restaurant for non-Cubans and the Cuban restaurant for the Latinos. And they both might have the same kind of food, right? I mean, Cuban food, but very much local version, like, so we went to the local ones. They don't even come to you. The server didn't even attempt English. Now, you might think, well, no, this is bad. You want to have bilingual so that they can meet more customers. No, this is their brand. They're specifically saying, no, you come to us for a local experience. And so if you don't speak Spanish, we can go get you the English menu, and there's stuff in there just in case, but we're trying to give you an authentic Cuban food experience. We're specifically designed to not feel like a generic American restaurant. Whereas the other guys are like, no, our whole jam is to get Cuban food to the rest of the country and give you a taste of it. So everything, all the servers have to be English speakers, right? And maybe an English first language. And so, which is the better play? You get to decide, man. What do you want? Neither one of them is good or bad. Both of those create a cool, authentic experience. And this one I went to was stinking awesome, Joe. Like, totally. I have a little list of my favorite restaurants in cities around the world. And I was like, my new Cuban joint in in the Miami area, my new Cuban joint in Miami. I'm like, heck yeah, that was awesome. Like, yeah. And you're like, wait, it was better that they didn't have the English flavor. Like, yeah, that's exactly what I was going for, man. I wanted authentic stuff. So what do you want? And then you get to design for that. It's not always more. Sometimes narrow is better.
Yeah, because you could target and focus on the audience you want rather than trying to be like the Campbell's soup approach. We're going to, kind of like take the salt out a little bit and make it for everybody. That's not always good.
Yeah.
The Denny's approach, right? Like, it's like, yeah.
And no offense if you're this person, but I don't know any raving fans of Denny's right now. Like, they're adequate, but like, I would rather have a smaller group of raving fans than a large group of regular customers. And right. I can just tell you, I've been inside these companies, lots of them that have this, without giving anybody's financial details away, confidentially. It is much more profitable to have raving fans than it is just to have lots of regular customers. This is a high value business with more stability and higher profit margins, man. It's worth it. Don't go mass, go niche. And I'm telling the phrase we've heard this one too, Joe, is the riches are in the niches. That is where the real value and the stability of your brand is.
Because it's repeat customers. That's the best kind of customer to have. And that is essentially what we're trying to do here with Guest Experience Management Journal, is to try to help folks and teach them how that works. Now, we briefly touched on leadership, and I know early in your career, you were working at a nonprofit, and just a lot of really nice, great folks who were working there. Everyone had great ideas they brought to the table, but they tended to only bring them to the table once a week and go over a report. How can leadership in a business, like you and your consulting, and forgive me if I'm wrong about any of these details, but you do tend to go on like a retreat every so often where you guys are really just having a really good time. You're out in Costa Rica, kind of surfing and riding ATVs, but at the same time, you're talking about the business itself. you're creating memories while also thinking about the different memories and moments you want to bring back to your business. How can leadership stop being in siloed little environments and actually work together on a day-to-day basis to really foster that sort of culture that the entire company needs to have?
Yeah, that's a great question. The obvious answer, Joe, is you just have to go to Costa Rica every year. I mean, it's the only way. I wish that was the answer. It does help to have cool environments and do all that. And I love the kind of outdoor adventure-y space. That's my personal jam. So, hey, since I'm CEO, we get to do our own cool retreats that are my favorites. Having said that, that's actually not a bad segue into like the problem. The problem is what we often have to do is get perspective that's not ours. And as a leader, as I go up and up, I've seen this, as you get promoted up and as your company gets bigger, you get further and further disconnected from reality and what's really going on. I mean, you're getting reports, right? You're getting data. And I'm not saying people are intentionally lying to you, but you're getting everything secondhand and simplified and their interpretation on it. The mistake is we run off of old data because we used to be the frontline guys that know all this stuff, right? And now I get reports about the front line. Or I pop in, I have old relationships, but it's 5%. It used to be 50% of the customers I knew personally. Now it's 5%. And then everybody, because I'm the boss, there's all this incentive. Bosses, let me just tell you, there is over your head a flashing neon sign that's just outside your peripheral vision. You can't see it, but everyone on your team who talks to you has this flashing sign. And it says, I'm your boss, I could fire you. I'm your boss, I could fire you. And so you're like, I'm just a guy, I'm just a gal, I'm just here talking, like, just tell me. And on flashing over your head where you're like, hey, what's going on, everybody? Just checking in. Is this flashing, I'm your boss, I could fire you, right? And it skews all your conversations. You have to work harder than you have ever worked before to get real information and have people challenge you. If you just have an open door policy, they're not going to walk through it. Or I say, by the time they do walk through it, it is a crisis. If you want to catch things while they're small and solvable, not a major crisis, then you have to go chase down insight, which means you have to have a humble attitude and you have to have disciplined, regular habits where you go listen, not talk, listen. Now, I'm getting passionate about this, Joe, because this was a huge challenge for me. I'm a talker. I have fun. I can rant. I love it. But I like to shut my mouth, ask them questions, let them tell me stuff and not defend or explain. Because in the moment they'll say bad stuff. When I say bad stuff, like, they'll complain about a thing and I just fixed it. Like they just have old data. Like they didn't know I just already made, and I'm like, oh no, you don't understand. We did it because if you ever try to explain away or defend or push in that exact moment, here's the signal you send as a leader. Hey, you're wrong. You shouldn't have told me that. And then now I had the flashing sign, right? And like, you were wrong. You shouldn't have said that. And oh, by the way, I could fire you if I think you're too wrong. And you will shut down your feedback. And you think I'm just explaining and being helpful. Now, maybe you say it's a big enough deal I got to explain. Great. Later. In this moment, your immediate signal needs to be, thank you. Thanks for telling me that. Let me go think about that. Then you can come back later, even a couple hours later, maybe the next day, give it some time and say, hey, I was thinking about what you said. And it turns out we actually just made that decision yesterday, but man, I really appreciate, here I'm going to end. I really appreciate you telling me because I need to know this stuff. I don't know that people didn't know about this until you told me. So that was so helpful. You have got to intentionally pursue and then reward people who challenge you, tell you things, give you stuff, even if you don't fully agree with it, or you're going to run on old data, limited data, and you're going to have people patting you on the back, telling you're awesome, and you are on the wrong course and you don't know until you run off the cliff. Man, the bigger you get and the higher you get, the more intentional you have to be to humble yourself and go listen to other people's opinions. I had to learn that lesson the hard way, and it makes a massive difference. I can't assume it's going to happen just because I care. I go chase it down, man. And this kind of learning leadership style is the difference between people who make it long-term and the people who spike and crash. Because your one good idea takes you to the top and then you lose connection and then you drift away and you don't know it until suddenly it's too late and somebody else has swept over. So I've seen it company after company where they found a thing, they ran their thing, the market kept growing and shifting and they didn't because they were disconnected and thought they knew all the answers. Constantly be learning. Leading is learning. And if you're not aggressively learning, you're leading us the wrong direction.